Oh. Oops, I'm live. Ah, I'm sorry, y'all. I forgot to turn off. So if you're watching live or if you're watching after the fact and I haven't trimmed this out, this is Cubby's new um banner, his new overlay for his little channel. He's taking over his brother's YouTube channel. Hold on, let me turn that off. You can subscribe to that channel. There we go. You can subscribe to that channel at Philly Bob PK. We're gonna figure out how to work Cubby's name into that because I don't want to start a whole new YouTube channel for the boys. But the oldest one isn't really doing much with it. So hi. Oh, I hope y'all like that. Somebody give me some comments or feedback and let me know what you thought of that. All right. Um, Real quick, I'm going to let you know real quick about a resource that I have for you that if you are a professional speaker or you aspire to be, or if you want to practice getting your message out, whether or not you plan to get paid speaking, I'm going to just drop this in the comments. So it's the very first one, and it's the link on my thing there, my name there, jjclink.com/stage. It's my get paid, not just book bonus, how to get out of the house and onto the stage, 30 places to get speaking engagements. Okay, that'll come into play later, but I wanted to make sure I posted it now right at the beginning so that when people come in, it's right there at the top of the comments list, and that way they'll have it. Okay, so it's telling me that some of the locations had an error posting that comment, but we're gonna go on. All right, y'all, it's JJ Conway. I'm so excited for you to be here with me today. We've got some really fantastic questions for our fireside chat. Every first Thursday is fireside chat. That's where I answer your questions, and I like to think I do it with style and grace. I'm not the most gracious person, but I figure if I speak that over my life enough, one day it will be true, right? Doesn't the Bible say, speak those things or call those things which be not as though they were? I kind of feel like if I just keep saying it, one day I'm going to walk right into it. Okay. So, for our fireside chat today, this is your chance to get any question you've got. Oop, I'm getting fuzzy. I don't know. Maybe I better not move too much. Hold on. Let me make this closer. Well, I don't want to make it too close. This is your opportunity to ask questions, and we take these questions and we use them to form the Wealth Building Wednesdays of the Building Wealth Together podcast. Okay, so if you have a question, there's several ways you can ask it. Okay, one, you can drop it in the comments. Now, I will say with StreamYard, it's kind of weird about some of the comments. Okay, depending on what you're on, if you drop a comment and I don't see it within about a minute or two, because sometimes if I'm making a point, I'm going to finish my point, right? And then I'll get to the questions. But if you see that it's been like 5 minutes and I have not answered your question, then try a different way, because sometimes StreamYard locks up and I can't see all the comments. All right. But you can drop a comment. If you're on YouTube, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on Facebook, wherever you're watching, drop a comment and it should pop up in my comment section for me to answer your question. Okay. You can also, if you prefer to be anonymous, you can, oops, I forgot to put on the free conference call. I keep forgetting to do that. I think I need to start just taking that off. That's not the right solution. No, wait, that's not the solution, y'all. That is not the solution. If you're listening to this after the fact for the podcast, the solution. Let me turn it down. The solution to not doing what you're supposed to do is not to give up and say, well, I'm just not going to do it then. That's not the solution. But even the best of us sometimes get in these modes where we're like, well, you know what? It's just, oh well, you know what? I keep messing this up. Let me honor myself and do some self-care and just take that off my plate, because I'm going to care for me and I'm going to take care of me. That's not called taking care of me. That's called me being lazy and forgetting my first fruits. And I do want to find a better solution, because we used to be on free conference call, and over the time my free conference call audience has dwindled, and so it's not zero. So I don't want to not use free conference call, but let's just say it's dwindled. So if you know another platform that's easy for folks to get to and they can participate, let me know and we might try that. And I've tried StreamYard and maybe I just need somebody to help host the room for me, but it just hadn't been working. But with this case, we do have the free conference call. You can dial *61 to ask your question. Now, if you're listening to this as the podcast after the fact and you're not live with us, well, why aren't you? You got to be live with us every Thursday, 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern. You got to come on live and ask your questions, all right? But seriously, though, you can go to Ask JJC. There should be a phone number there where you can call in and leave it. I won't get those until after this, but if you leave your question, if you will call in your question, I'll get it for the next one. All right. And every Thursday we've got a class and you can ask your question. So first Thursday is any question. Second Thursday is our 6-figure business building. And that is we have different business topics like how to make your first $1,000 with writing a book, how to make your first $1,000 with affiliates, things like that. Right. And then every third Thursday is real estate. Woo woo, going back to our first roots where we started on every third Thursday back in Kingstown, Keller Williams, Kingstown. And then the fourth Thursday is our empowered entrepreneur. So now we're looking at not just up leveling your business, but also up leveling your life. I love what I do. I hope that shines through. And I'm very excited to be here with you. Look at that. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. I'm going to have to write that down so I can use it next time. All right. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into the first question. And for those of you who saw my preview video, you already know we're going to start off talking about people who are having to rehabilitate their life. This can apply really to anybody who's got some kind of mark against them. So maybe you had an issue that caused you to get out of the Air Force or the Army and you don't have an honorable discharge. You know, one of the things that I discovered at the end of my career is there's a lot of good people who don't have an honorable discharge because of shenanigans that happened at the end of their career. And there are several people who are very active in this fight to get some of those shenanigans, the results of those shenanigans overturned so that people can get the military benefits that are due to them. But it affects your employment and all that stuff. Even worse is when you are incarcerated and you come out, especially with a felony, and makes it very, very difficult for you to find a good job. And if it's difficult to find a good job, well, you know, there's one area of life that pays very, very well. Very dangerous, not good benefits, and very serious consequences if you're caught. But a life of crime does tend to pay well in a situation where you got mouths to feed, or you got a life to rebuild, or you've got debts to pay, or you've got fill in the blank. And so my hope is that more people, more companies, more agencies will help those who choose to turn their life around and become productive members of society, actually be able to become productive members of society. So I'm calling because I had somebody approach me. I've actually had this a couple times, and I thought, well, you know, it's time to talk about it. And those of you who don't know my family history, my father was incarcerated when I graduated from the Air Force Academy. And for a few years, even after he got out, I didn't want to have anything to do with him because I didn't understand all the situation around why he went to jail. I just know what I heard. And now that I know more, I understand how sometimes people are put in positions and situations, and I understand how people take advantage of the system for whatever reason, to enact whatever they think needs to be enacted. I'm speaking very gingerly on that. We can talk offline about what I really mean. Y'all know I'm a very direct person, but in this situation, I think it's best to just kind of, you know, those of you who understand. And so my father actually had what we call a jailhouse conversion, right? He gave his life back to the Lord. But when he came out, I honestly did not believe him. I did not believe him for a number of years. In fact, it wasn't until my son was born, which was 8 years after I got out of the academy. And I don't know how long he had been out. I think he got out when I was in Ohio. So I was still a lieutenant. So this had to have been about 6 years because I pinned on major and when my oldest was a year old. So yeah, this had to have been about 6 years that I just didn't talk to him. I called him once or twice when he was in prison, mainly to gloat about, I'm a physicist. You told me to get my nose out those books. No man would ever want me, and I got a great life. Boy, life was coming, wasn't it? And I wasn't one of those people that was really, I've never been one of those that's real haughty or uppity with my mom or dad on purpose. I think I was a lot because my kids are uppity with me, but I can tell that they're not trying to, they're just drawn that way. And they got it honest because they got it from their mama, right? And so I train them in the proper way to express their opinions that isn't so disrespectful. And when I feel like I can't I can't offer any advice, then we end the conversation because you're not going to talk to your mom that way. But oh dear. Okay, this conversation is taking a turn I was not expecting. So anywho, it wasn't until Philip was born that I started to reestablish a relationship with my father. Excuse me for a second. So sorry. And one of the things that I discovered, it's really difficult for a felon to find employment. And so over the last couple of months, I've had people bubble up to me that have had questions about family members, and I just want to let people know today that there's hope. And my dad's jailhouse conversion stuck. Right, he'd stuck after he was released and rebuilt his life. And at his funeral, 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago, at his funeral, so many people came out and talked about how he had blessed them and helped them and planted flowers and helped them overcome this and helped them with that. And it was just a beautiful legacy. And I still get notes and cards and Facebook things from his friends, his close friends, and the people whose lives he influenced. And so I'm very thankful for that. I know I'm not one of these naive people that think that everybody who comes out of jail is turning their life around. They've served their debt to society. And I understand that that's not the case for everybody. But when it is the case for somebody, it really would be nice if there was more assistance to help those folks overcome what they need to do in order to get a job. Because even if there's a position that will hire you, sometimes they won't hire you. And what do I mean by that? Okay. So what do I mean by that is that a lot of times what people say are they recommend for felons is to go do something. This is what I always think is funny. Is like, well, go do something that doesn't require any certifications, go do something that doesn't require any college or anything. It's like people aren't dumb. People are not dumb just because they went to college. Okay, I don't want to get on this rant because I can feel it. I can feel it. And I'm already going to talk about college loans. So that's already another rant. I'm going to have to I'm going to have to tone it down. The spirit of the prophet is subject to the prophet. Right. And so, I always find it interesting. And then a lot of times other people recommend things like sales, go into real estate. And I'm like, I was a realtor for 10 years. And yes, having a felony doesn't keep you from getting a real estate license, but having a felony might keep you from finding a broker that's willing to let you hang your license with him or her, because that's a liability, and it represents increased risk. Can it be done? Sure, it can be done. But there's a lot of states that don't have protections for felons to rebuild their lives and not be discriminated against. Okay. And it's not that, and again, it's not that it's unreasonable. And if we're advocating on behalf of people who are like my dad, then we have to be reasonable adults and understand that there are a lot of people who are not like my dad, who, given the first chance they get, are going to go right back into crime. They're going to cause problems. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. Sometimes it's because there's not a pathway. And those are the instances that I'm talking about today. I'm talking about pathways. So what are some pathways? So one pathway is to start with work that is basically going to allow you to come in and be hired and things like that. And nobody ever really wants to work those kinds of jobs. I understand that, but it's a starting place. It's a starting place to get some money so that you can then do more and have more options later. So, it's hard to get a nice place to live if you can't afford a decent place to live. It's hard to build a life. Like, maybe if you want, you've had that guy or that gal who stood by you the whole time you were incarcerated, and now you want to rebuild your family. Well, it's hard to do that if you can't put food on the table. So let's start with the basics and get the basics covered. And some of the jobs that my dad and others that we know that were in that situation were around the trucking industry, the packing industry, the moving industry, and things like that. I've heard, but I have not observed personally, that being a server is a good, like restaurateurs. I personally, I don't know that that's necessarily true. If somebody has some experience, I'd like to hear firsthand. But then there's another thing that a lot of people don't think about. You're going to laugh when I say this, okay? You're going to laugh when I say this, but you would be surprised how many people who are pastors or work in the church or anything like that who have had criminal histories. And you're like, what? How would anybody how would anybody wanna have a minister at your church or a youth minister? I mean, well, youth minister is kind of hard because you have to do background checks and liability and stuff like that. Depending on the nature of your crime, that's going to be a little difficult. But I know people who've turned their life around and are now pastoring and are getting, and not, I don't want to say it like it's a business, like not like they're doing it to get paid, but they're getting paid a nice living wage, leading people and saying, look, if God could turn my life around, he can do anything. If God could turn my life around, he can turn yours around. If God could save my life and save my marriage, he can save your life and save your marriage. If God could set me free from addiction, then he can set you free from addiction. Right. And so I don't want anybody to think, oh, all I'm ever going to be able to do for the rest of my life is construction and manual labor, packing people's houses and driving cross country to drop them off. Now, don't overlook that, though. My dad made good money in the trucking industry. Okay. And that's why and I never hear that. Whenever I'm listening to a financial show, I never hear anybody say, hey, get with this company, learn the ropes, decide if you like it, become an owner operator, and boom, you can make serious bank. Now, we all know that automation is coming, and that may not be a good recommendation 20 years from now. Okay. But in the short term, right? Short term, let's give some stability. Then anything in sales where the sales is not going to where the person who's hiring you to do the sales is not covering you with insurance such as errors and omissions and things like that. Okay, so does it mean you can't do real estate or be a realtor? Well, it doesn't mean that you can't. There's no law that says you can't. However, well, I don't know. Wait. That may not be true. I can't speak for all the jurisdictions because I don't know the laws in all the jurisdictions. I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV. All right. If somebody sound bites, then I'm gonna be real irritated with you because I just cleared it up. And if you're listening to the podcast, don't you quit that one little sentence and take it out of context. Okay. But there's no rule that says you can't. There's no rule that I know of, and I don't know everything that says you can't do real estate as a realtor or something like that. But there may be, you may have to work harder to find the right broker, because let me tell you how real estate works. And I love, the reason I'm mentioning real estate is we're going to talk about real estate investing here in a second. The reason I like real estate is because it's unlimited potential. Any kind of sales really is unlimited potential. But the thing about real estate is a numbers game, and it is a checklist game. So if you are not an outgoing salesperson, you know the personality, right? Like the high eye, life of the party, can really quickly figure out what it is you need to make your life better, and then offer you a solution that meets that need, and just really connect well, and you just buy anything from that person, right? Like those people, unlimited income potential, no matter what your past says. But some of us, we're not that person. Some of us are the person that we walk in and everybody else shuts down, like, I don't want to help you. Some of us have had to learn how to be more personable. And I'm still a work in progress. Okay. I admit it. But so here's the thing. So with that, what I like about real estate is I don't have to be super, super personable to stand up every day from 9 to 11 and make phone calls. All the expireds, all the for sale by owners. Like that's just follow the checklist. Make the phone call, hear what they need, follow the script, give them what they need, get the appointment. So many appointments result in so many listings. So many listings result in so many contracts on the house. So many contracts on the house result in so many sales. How many sales do you need to make? You walk it back. I need one sale a month and a commission of $5,000 a month to really change my life. Well, I can do that with, what does it walk back to? Like, I don't know, like 70 phone calls a week or something like that. And most of us can do that. Not everybody. Some people have physical limitations, but most of us can do that. Okay. So you do something in the short term that's going to allow you to build that foundation. And then once you've got that foundation, now you can begin to take your life to the next level. Because once you have some money, it's a lot easier for people to overlook the fact that you got blips in your past. Okay. And so I'm going to show you this list of places. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing. It's a 6-page list. All right. It is a 6-page list. Wait, where's my share screen? Huh. Oh, y'all, I don't have a share screen button. Oh, okay. It's called present now. Okay, if you're listening on the podcast, I'm sorry if I didn't have time to edit that out. We have this huge backup of podcasts because I mistakenly uploaded a video instead of an audio last month. And so it clogged the whole system. I used up all of my storage with one show, and then I couldn't upload any of the other shows. And so there's like 12 shows that are about to launch Saturday. My poor subscribers. I'm like, sorry, y'all are the best if you stick with me though. And so I'm kind of in a rush trying to get these things all done. But here you can see here this list of felon friendly employers. Okay. And you notice that a lot of these are going to be sales, sales heavy kind of jobs, or day labor, not day labor, but labor intensive kind of jobs. Okay. That you're going to find. And the thing is, like for example, I used to sell Avon. Okay. I used to sell Avon. I don't, I don't remember it being a huge problem, but again, your success is going to depend on finding people to work with you. I guess I am going to scroll through all of it. Okay. So this is a lot. This is a list of jobs here that you can take a look at. And if you want to get that list, you can actually search for it online, or you can just reach out to me. You'd probably be faster to search outline. Okay. So here we go. Here we go. Thank you, Miss Jackie. Felons without child abuse issues can sit on nonprofit boards, start NPOs, get EINs, DBAs, start businesses. I am helping one. And that actually leads to the next thing. I don't know what's going on with this camera. That actually leads to the next thing that I want to say is once you've got something established, once you've got something to work with, thank you, Miss Jackie. Once you've got the initial coverage of your basic expenses and needs of you and your family covered, right? Once you've got that, now it's time to look at how to get more income, because being a packer and then riding the truck to the next destination and helping unpack all the stuff, that's going to give you something to eat with, but that's not going to give you the abundant life that you probably want now that you're trying to rebuild your life, okay? And try to build something beautiful out of what maybe had a rocky start, you know? And so with that, you want to do something more. And I'm wearing, and it's a shame. The reason I started the broadcast 10 minutes late, for those of you who were on here, is because I was trying to find his book. This shirt is a shirt I bought from somebody who I have seen several times. Like, I have been traveling so much and I've seen him at various Walmarts. And the last time I was like, I promise you, I'm not stalking you or anything. I just happened to run into you a couple times. He's been to Stephenville twice. That sells these shirts and sells his book, and I cannot remember his name, but he has books out about his conversion. He has books out about going from being a felon to being a business owner with unlimited income, and he basically sells his books and his t-shirts, and he's got some I want to say tapes, but I don't even know if they're CDs, but I think they are CDs, but he sells content that he created. And don't you think that anybody who's been through something that very few of us want our kids to fall into has got a story to tell, has got some warnings to give, has got some advice? Like, I would really, if there was somebody who could speak into a mother's life, a single mother's life, and say, hey, here's the things that led me down this path. And maybe you don't want to let your children fall down that path. Don't you think people would pay for that? Don't you think you could start putting things on YouTube, and that's free, and get a following off of that, and then maybe have some other people come along. That's what this, and it really kills me. He doesn't have his brand or anything on the shirt, right? But that's, I was like, I've got to find him. I've got to find him. And I couldn't find him. And I can't even remember his name. It's such a shame. I feel so horrible. If you're watching this, please forgive me, because I've seen him several times. And so I kind of like recognize him by now when when I see him set up in the store. And he's making a movie about the whole turning his life around, in addition to the books and the content that he sells. And so for me, I really, really love anybody who is taking charge of their life. See, sometimes we have things that, hey, brother, sometimes we have things that happened to us. And then sometimes we have things that we've done to us. And then sometimes things are just life. Some things are they're just life. I did not choose to be born in this body with this voice and this hair, and I didn't choose that. It's how I was made. And whether God chose it or whether God works with it, the theology is up for debate. But the bottom line is, I could spend my life pining away for not being blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and with a gorgeous singing voice and a stick-thin figure. And I know I'm working on the figure, but I also know that a lot of people that I run into who are stick-thin, that's genetics. That's not eating. They might eat to maintain it as they get older, but that's to go from being this big to being this big. Oh wait, I shouldn't do that. In some cultures, that's not good. I'm sorry, y'all. But they do that to go from being this big to being this big, not this big to being this big. All right. So some of that is just genetics, but some things we cannot control. We can waste our life being upset about the things we cannot control, or we could take the bull by the horns and do something about it. We could be upset that we weren't born and gifted with the brawn of our brother, or the beauty of our sister, or the brains of our dad, or the street smarts of our mom. We just so upset and frustrated that we got dealt the hand of cards we got dealt, that we never look to move forward. And for a lot of us, don't worry, some of you are saying, well, felons, if they didn't do the crime, they shouldn't do, they did the crime, they should do the time. We'll get to that in a second, because look, if there's anybody who's made a lot of mistakes in life, I know all about mistakes. Now, well, it's not true. I can't say I never went to jail. My parents are like, huh? I don't think they watch these, so we're probably okay. All right, so I'm gonna make a stick person, not the Think and Grow Rich stick person, but I'm gonna make a stick person for us today, okay? And in the stick person is the bubble of all the things that we can do. Around the stick person is the bubble of all the things that they could do. And what a lot of us do is we worry about stuff we can't do, stuff we can't control. We worry about the stuff that we can't do. We worry about the stuff that we can't control, right? But what we don't do is we don't take care of all the little things. Who knows what I'm going to say? Who knows what I'm going to say? Who knows what I'm going to say? Some of you have seen this several times. Who knows what I haven't drawn it out cute like that, though. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? I think we're going to keep this illustration, right? What am I going to write after that? What we don't do is we don't take care of the things we can do. We don't take care of the things we can do because we're so busy being focused on what we can't do. We're so busy being focused on who we don't know. We're so busy being focused on what we're unable to, what our station in life, and what everything else. And I'm not talking about a visualization. Yes, my visualization says that I'm going to visualize a life that I don't currently have, because it's the life I feel called to live. I'm going to visualize who I want to meet next year. And I'm going to tell you, some of you think this is woo-woo stuff, but everybody I wanted to share the stage with this year, I have shared the stage with. Dr. Fraser, Les Brown, Dr. John C. Maxwell, Dave Ramsey. I have been on the stage with all these people that I I purposed in my heart that I wanted to be on the stage with. And some of these people, I didn't have any avenue to get to them. Dr. Henry Cloud. All right. And so I'm just like, hey, the Lord can work it out. That's not what I'm talking about here. Okay. What I'm talking about here is, well, my sister can really sing and I sing in the key of duck. So I'm going to be upset all day that I can't be a singer, and I'm going to train, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, because boy, if I can dream it, I can believe it. But you know what I'm not doing? I'm not taking care of the people who are already pulling for me. I'm not taking care of the people who want to buy my book. I'm not taking care of the people who want to have me come to their conference and set me up a table to sell my stuff in the back of the room. I'm not taking care of the people who are in my list. Oh, y'all, I have done this, so I know some of y'all have done it too. We don't take care of the things that we have in hand because we're so busy chasing after everything else. But if we would just do what we can do, then what happens is our circle expands. So I'm going to use a different color on this one. I'm going to do this red. I should have used red in the first place for don't do. Okay. But I do what I could do. And now my circle expands around what I could do. And the more I do of what I could do, the more my reach and circle expands. And you know what? Maybe I will always sing in the key of duck. I don't know. I'm asking the Lord to anoint my voice. He hasn't sent me a musician. We had that church in Louisiana for 4 years, and he didn't send me no musician. So then I said, okay, Lord, either send me the musician or make me one. And maybe eventually my circle will expand and I'll be able to sing like a songbird and just bring the people in and deliver them in their minds like David did, right? I don't know. I'm just using that as an example because I can laugh about it, because I'm like, look, I'm going to trust the Lord. Either he's going to send me a musician or make me one, or it's not going to matter, right? But if we do what we can do, if we do what we can do, if we do what we can do, okay, it's going to start looking like a flower, then what we can do begins to grow and grow and grow, and eventually you'll get what you need, okay? Now, you say, well, I get that, I get it. I get it, tree hugger. You think everybody who went to jail probably didn't deserve it. Well, I know a lot of people who didn't deserve it. And I know a lot of people who did deserve to go to jail that didn't go to jail. I know some of them personally. I know some of them in the news. I remember a man who brutally assaulted and raped this lady. It was all caught on video. Young man, college student. And the judge let him go and said, well, we don't want to ruin his bright future. Yet I also know people who've been in jail for years because they were 18 and sent a text to their 16-year-old girlfriend, a suggestive text to their 16-year-old girlfriend. Or because we've heard the stories of people who've been in jail for 20 years for smoking weed or carrying it across state lines. And now it's even legal in some of those states, and those people aren't getting out. And other people around them have done far worse than that. But however, this person got punished and that person didn't get punished. So I'm not saying somebody didn't need to get punished, but did you need to get punished for 20 years? Or was there something else going on? I'm not going to get into that political debate, but it's something to consider. And so what do you do when you really messed up? Thank you. I appreciate you. And yes, I'm going to get to your self-image rising question in a little bit. We're going to save that one till later. What do you do? What do you do when you really messed up? What do you do? How do you move past that? Now, it depends in many circles, because in many circles, there's a lot of be transparent and be genuine and be authentic. And if you're filling out a job application, I'm going to need you to be transparent. I'm going to need you to be genuine, and I'm going to need you to be authentic. I'm going to need you to put down what happened and explain it. But here's the thing. Owning your past doesn't mean your past owns you. I'm going to say that again. Owning your past does not mean your past owns you. Somebody drop that in the comments for me. All right. Owning your past, owning up to the fact that I made this mistake, or I did this, or I did that. It doesn't solve the problem. A lot of times it doesn't absolve you from the consequences. But you don't have to let the past control you, to acknowledge that you made the mistakes. What's important, people say experience is a wise teacher. And I like how John Maxwell puts it. It's not experience that's a wise teacher. It's evaluated experience that's a wise teacher. So we evaluate the experience of our life. Now, here's the thing. Evaluating the experience of your life, going into a job application, even with those companies that I listed on that 6-page thing. I didn't list it; it's somebody else's list. But even with those companies, that is not going to get you the good job. That is not going to get you the opportunity to step up. Okay. What's going to get you the opportunity is, do I have it here? Yeah, I have it here. Is what Ken Coleman calls the proximity principle. Okay. I love Ken Coleman. He got me my first TV appearance. And I didn't think he was serious, because at that time Dave Ramsey had never been on TV. Well, I mean, he might have been, but like his show in his studio in Nashville had never been on TV, and so, or in Franklin. And so when he said, "Well, we're going to film this and we want you to introduce the show." And I introduced the show. I had people come back, "Hey, I saw you on TV." I was like, "What?" And I was good, y'all. Said, "Oh, I found me something. I found me a little song. All right. Yes, 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 yes. Owning your past does not mean your past owns you. That's a bumper sticker, y'all. As somebody at one of the recent conferences I spoke at, he told his folks, write that on a whole page. Don't even put that with anything else. Write that on a whole page. The proximity principle. And basically what this means is you don't just get a job by checking the boxes and filling out the forms. And I'm saying job, but ultimately I want everybody under the sound of my voice who has an entrepreneurial spirit or is comfortable with entrepreneurship to have those multiple streams of income. It's going to feed into the next question. And I know oh, wow, it's been 36 minutes on this question, but you know what? I guess it's just going to be a whole podcast episode on this question alone. You get what you want out of life by getting close to the people who can help you get it. And a lot of times it starts with serving them and putting yourself on their agenda, as Dr. Fraser says. Put yourself on their agenda before you expect them to put themselves on yours, right? And so you find the people that have the keys to the kingdom you're trying to enter, and you work to build those relationships in a strategic yet genuine, as Ben Starling would say, strategic yet genuine way, so that you will be able to meet their needs, alleviate their concerns, be a leader in their life, which means taking off some of the burdens that they have, fulfilling some of the needs for causes that are near and dear to their heart, being there active and volunteering and doing what you can to serve them, and build relationships so that when the opportunities arise, and the opportunities always arise, it's never a one-time good deal. Okay. It's never a once in a lifetime, this job comes along. It may not come along for another 10 years at that company, but at this company, the next company over, it's going to come over in 6 months or in another year or something like that. Put yourself in proximity to the people who can help you get what you want. And once you've built those relationships, the mistakes of your past aren't going to matter as much. All right. All right. All right. All right. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so that's going to go into our next question. And our next question is how to hedge inflation. So I had someone come to me, and I actually spoke with this person. They actually booked a coaching call with me, and we spoke at length. And it come to find out, this person actually was very well set financially. But because of some things that she's going to be uncovering over the next couple of weeks, there was a hesitation there. And I challenged this individual, take a look at why you, with a half $500,000 net worth, are so stressed out about buying meat at double the cost. Is it crazy that the groceries and everything has skyrocketed, that the gas has skyrocketed? Is it ridiculous? Is it tough on people? Yes. But for those of us who have been able to save and have our 3 to 6 months, or, I was recommended at the start of the pandemic, build it up to 12 months, right? For those of us who have our fully funded savings accounts, and those of us who have solid investments and things like that, we're able to better weather this storm than people who are living paycheck to paycheck, hand to mouth. And so And so while I understand that these prices and everything for all of us, it's been a hindrance to our financial lifestyle that we might have. But for people who are in that category, it's an inconvenience. It's an inconvenience. It's not having to choose whether I'm gonna get my son a new pair of shoes because he's got holes in his shoes, or am I gonna make him a lunch? Or am I gonna hope that the teacher has something stashed in her desk? I remember those days, right? Like do I send my kid do I send my kid to school with another layer of cardboard in his shoes, or do I buy him something for lunch? And if I scrimp on his lunch money for a couple weeks, then I can go get him some new shoes. And y'all say, well, that's ridiculous. There's all these programs. Well, I was a single mom who made good money, but I had $840,000 of debt. And so I made really good money, but it was the minute I got it, it was all gone. And even then I couldn't pay my bills, right? So what do we do to combat inflation, and why does it even matter? For some of us, we think, oh, it's okay. The government's going to take care of me. I've got my pension. I've got my Social Security. I've got this. I've got that. I'm going to show you a little bit. Let's see if I can share this screen. I'm going to show you a little bit of why you have to be concerned about the impact of inflation. Let me get to the screen real quick. We are going to look at boop, 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 boop. Oh, I forgot about this. Okay, going back to the felon discussion, please, please, please let me have time to edit this before the podcast goes out. The going back to I meant to show you all this. Hold on. Present. I wish they would give us a heads up when they change the name. Or maybe they changed it a while ago and I just never noticed. Sometimes that happens. I lived on a street once and they changed the traffic pattern. And we all complained about it once when we were all started getting tickets and stuff. And they had pictures, man. They knew how to come correct. They had pictures of when they installed the signs and when they did this and that. We just never noticed. Okay. And so this is not the guy I was talking about, but this is another example of someone who took their own personal example in life of being in prison and turning their life around and captured it in a book, and now sells that book and has a very, very significant number of ratings and opportunities. And so entrepreneurism, I think, is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful way to hedge inflation. But let me show you why it's so important to hedge inflation. Okay, let's see. Can you all see that? Okay. So I'm here at this investment calculator. Okay. Now I'm just going to put basic numbers because I want to show you something. Like, let's say I retired from the Air Force 2 years ago, and 20 years from now, wait, how do I want to say that? One of the things that I found with my clients is that they come to me thinking that their military retirement was going to keep up with the world and of inflation and the raising costs of living and medical care and all that stuff. And some of this inflation, we would never have predicted how crazy things are. Although I will say, and you're going to be mad at me. Some of y'all going to be mad at me for saying this. I hope you'll stay subscribed anyway. I hope you hit like and subscribe. And, but some of y'all going to be mad at me for saying this. Okay. I could have told you. And in fact, I think I did tell some people in some of these areas where they enacted this super high minimum wage of like 17 or $20 an hour. I was like, you do realize that now all the prices for all the basic things are going to go up to accommodate this. And at the end of the day, people who are in poverty are still not going to have enough to live their lives. Now, they might have enough for a short term to live their life before the prices catch up to what the employers are having to pay. But the employers are going to only absorb costs one of two ways. They're going to find ways to cut costs, or they're going to raise prices. Now, some venues, some genres, some industries like McDonald's, they have been able to cut costs by having you order at the kiosk instead of ordering through a person, right? So now people who are working there get paid $20 an hour, but there's only 2 people working there instead of 7. So from my perspective as a financial planner, that did not help my urban community. Okay. So that's another rant. I'm going to hold it down. But we got to look at economics, and we got to learn how to make economic decisions instead of instead of feeling emotional decisions. And we've got to learn how to recognize that if we're in a place where we're not making enough money to feed our family, it is time for us to take actions to put ourselves in a place with jobs that are appropriately structured to provide that for ourselves and our family. All right. Okay, ran off. Let's go back to this one. All right. So let's just say we're gonna make round numbers. Let's say that your government check, we're gonna start at zero. Let's just say that your government check is $1,000. Okay. Your government check is $1,000. That's what you get every year. I know some of you get a lot more. I know some of you get a lot less. But let's just say that's what you get, okay? What do you think your annual return will be? We are going to use average numbers for inflation. Average number for inflation, when they calculate it, they calculate I don't know if you've ever seen this. Average numbers for inflation, when they calculate inflation, is between 3 to 4%, depending on who you ask. So a lot of times when you look at how much of a nest egg should I have, you'll note that they use the number 4% for how much you can take out every year and still have a nest egg that doesn't decrease. That nest egg is called a corpus. That corpus stays the same because you're only withdrawing what the inflation is going up. So we're going to put 4% for inflation. Okay, so when I calculate this out, did I forget something? It's not giving me anything. Did I do something wrong? Well, that stinks when you do something live and it doesn't work. Okay, normally I like using this one because it doesn't have all the credit card and other ads and all the crazinesses. Okay. Um That's not working. Okay, well, you know what? I don't know what I did wrong. I feel like that was a massive fail. Okay, let me all right, I'm going to draw it out for you. I know it's not the numbers. I know it's not the numbers. I know you want the numbers. I know you want to see the numbers. You don't want to just see my suppositions, okay? But I don't know what's wrong with it. I don't have time to do it. We're already 47 minutes into it, and I still got 3 other questions. I'm only on my second question, all right? So let me go ahead and just draw this out, okay? I'm going to draw this out as the market, your investments, okay? This is time and this is money, okay? And so when you start investing, the market goes up and down and 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 up and down, and you add more money into it. And if you just keep on going, can y'all see all those up and downs I drew in pencil? If you just keep on going and keep on going, your investment account is going to look something like that. But overall, the trend is going to follow the purple line. It's going to kind of do an exponential growth kind of thing. So what happens to a lot of us, the reason we never see all this exponential growth, which is, I like to call it the dunamis power. It's where the money just keeps, if you just keep going and going and going, that money just keeps going and going, and you almost can't spend enough of it, right? But a lot of us never get this far because we get here and mama wants us to buy our house and we drop back down to zero, and then we start rebuilding, and then nieces and nephews need something and we do it for them and we drop down to zero, and so needs to go to college, and never mind the fact that they can work and get scholarships and all this stuff, but we just feel like, oh my goodness, we're the only person in the family that's doing well. We feel an obligation to do whatever, and we just keep dropping down, and we just keep starting over, dropping down, starting over, dropping down. We never get to this part. Okay, that's a whole different conversation. Okay, but what happens with a lot of us who have pensions and retirement plans, and we see this happen a lot in the military, is we have a set number of what we're getting, and then the government increases it. And I was saying earlier in my walking video, I don't know if this is an actual policy. I've never worked in the government financial avenue, so I don't know, but this is just what it feels like. It just kind of feels like the inflation rate, not inflation rate, that the pay raises for your pensions and your military and your federal pensions and your social security and all that kind of stuff, it just seems to somehow work out that it's always a percent or two below inflation. And so when you start off, it's really almost an imperceptible difference. An imperceptible difference, right? Like you almost, wait, let me cover that part. There we go. You almost can't even tell a difference because it's just so small. It's only over time that it begins to be noticed. And so let's say you retire at the military. Well, after you've been retired for about 20 years, all right, you start to see the crunch because your raise is going up. I mean, your pay is going up, your retirement pay is going up, but the cost of living is going up faster, and you're like, oh well, it's still okay. So now you're in your 60s, right? Because most of us who retire from the military, we're retiring unless we make serious rank. We're retiring in our 40s, maybe early 50s, right? And now you're in your 60s, and you're like, it's okay, it's no big deal. But let's just say you're healthy enough to live another 10 years. Wait, let's do that. Yeah, to live another 10 years. Now it's getting worse. And now let's say you make it to your 80s and you want to go into a nursing home, or you want to go have some assisted living, or you want to have somebody come take care of you so you don't have to go into a state-run institution, but you got too big of a gap between what your military, your federal pension does and what's required for you to have a basic dignified life. And so we have all these people who serve their country, or all these people who served in inner city neighborhoods. You have all these people who were in law enforcement, or they did whatever it was they did, and they thought they were getting well compensated, but they weren't. And it hardly notices when it first starts, but after a while, the rub is felt. And so that's why it's important for us to hedge against inflation. And I'm going to tell you right now, my recommendations for hedging against inflation: get that savings account, get that initial savings account, so you don't have to put things on a credit card, or you don't have to go into debt to take care of your basic pop-up emergencies of life. Okay, the tires bust in your car, the check engine light comes on, you got $1,000 in the bank, you can cover it, right? Then I encourage everybody to get out of debt. Get out of debt. Why do you want to get out of debt? Because if you're out of debt, then this isn't so bad for you. This isn't so bad for you if you're out of debt, because debt is one of our biggest expenses in this culture. The next thing I want you to do is have a really, really big savings account. And if you can pay off your house, I want you to pay off your house. I can't pay off my house. That'll lead me to liability. Put that thing in a trust. I had somebody come up to me and they were like, "Oh, I'm never going to put my house in a trust again, because then when I need to borrow against it, I couldn't do this and I couldn't." And I'm like, "You're not supposed to. You're supposed to build a business and build a real estate and build your investments and set it and forget it for 20 years so you have money to play with." Anyway, I encourage you, pay down your debts. Why do I encourage you to pay down your debts? Pay down your house, because if you can fix as much of your life and minimize as much of your life going into your retirement years, then you don't have as much to worry about. And so, okay, well, the cost of beef went up, but I'm not paying $1,000 mortgage, so I can absorb that. Okay. The next thing I'm going to encourage you to do in order to help beat inflation, because we're already in what we're in, right? I was so excited. I was so excited earlier this year. I got a 7% raise on my military retirement. I was like, "Oh yeah!" They finally heard the cry of the veterans that said, "Look, stop paying us little." Right? They're like making up for lost time. No, they're not. Inflation was like 8-9%. I was like, we're still behind. We got all this extra money and we're still behind. And so you can't trust anybody but your own self. And so that's when then I recommend looking at additional streams of income. Some of you see behind me, you see some of the books and things that I've written, and those have a nice little income every month, even the ones that I've written a long time ago. In fact, some of my older books are the ones that still sell the best. And so maybe I should stop writing them. I don't know. I don't think they're that good. I'm like Clark Howard. They were like, where can I get all 13 of your books? He's like, the first 12 weren't any good. Um, I guess they find that out when they buy it. Okay. Um, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm getting tired. And I just realized I forgot to plug in my computer, and so it's giving me the hey, your battery is gonna be is down to 20%. We'll see how long this goes. If I don't get to your question today, just go ahead and come back next week, and we'll catch all the questions that I don't answer, because I'm not gonna disrupt the rest of the family by trying to go out there and get the cable. Okay. I'm sorry. They've been through a lot. This has been a rough week for the family. Everybody's exhausted. Okay. Even the baby didn't complain today about going to bed. So all right. And for those of you who wonder where I look up, I'm not lying. He's sleeping over there. I share my office with my 6-year-old. So there you go. I'm probably not supposed to admit that, but you know what? That's a part of the journey. It's a part of the journey. All right. Let's see. Saving up for the next house because we want to buy it in cash. Yeah, baby. All right. The next question. Wait, inflation. Did I cover inflation? Savings, get rid of debt, including your house if you can. Um, and in multiple streams of income. I didn't talk about that a lot. Okay, I got books here. There are all kinds of ways to have multiple streams of income. Even if you don't feel like you are an entrepreneur, even if you don't feel like you're an entrepreneur, you can still have additional streams of income. So for example, if you are a teacher, you can do tutoring. There's online things that you can do. There are boards that you can participate in. Well, boards don't usually make money, but there are ways you can provide value to other organizations that will pay you. Okay. And so, like, for example, my husband is a band director. Band directors, as a general rule, are kind of like any other specials teacher. They kind of get the kids that want to be in their class, so they don't have to deal with all the kids that just stuck there because their mom said so, although you do get that from time to time. um Never mind, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut on that, because normally it's the athletics that mom said stick your kid in. And the kid's like, I just want to do band. Anyway, um oh boy. Please don't fire my husband. He loves his job. But so he does band. He gets kids that he wants. He doesn't deal with a lot of trouble kids. He deals with, he deals with troubled kids, but they are kids who want to be in his classroom. And so he really loves what he does. Well, what else can he do to make money? Well, he can tutor, he can offer private lessons. He has coached many on how to make it to state, right? Many young people on how to make it to state. He has been an excellent resource for parents who are trying to get their kids out of poverty to go to college and find band scholarships. Oh my goodness, this is one of the things I fell in love with about him. Is when I saw that he was doing that for these kids in Tenaha. Like, he was really creating pathways for them, and I was just like, oh. I'm such a cream puff when it comes to kids who start off with very little, maybe because I was one, right? So I appreciate people like my husband who helped me get where I am today. And I love to see him continue that for the kids that he influences. But other things that he does that he makes money with, not much, but enough, but it helps, is judging other contests, when the schools get together and compete and see who does the best in their performances and stuff. He clinics for other bands, so he might help them learn how to play the piece better, and how to do better when it comes time to get to their competitions and stuff. And he does things like that. And so there's always different ways that you can create streams of income, even if you don't feel like you're necessarily entrepreneurial. If I asked my husband to become a full-time entrepreneur, I think he would poke his eyes out, because that is just not his thing. But that doesn't mean that he can't create and doesn't create multiple streams of income. So I want to encourage you, if you're concerned about inflation, and I already showed you why we should all be concerned about inflation, I encourage you to find a way to really produce other streams of income that will help you when one sector of life gets crazy and another sector of life decreases. Okay. And so um let's see, next question. And Dennis, you know what, actually, I'm going to interrupt my question since you're on live now. You said that you need help with the self-image rising. Let me know, drop in the chat what kind of help you want. This is one of my best classes. It's the class that contains the lessons that helped me get my life back after that car accident that ultimately ended my career. I felt so worthless, y'all. I felt because and I want you to imagine this, okay? I was a physicist in the Air Force. At one point, I was the deputy chief scientist for a global strike command, a command of 31,000 people. And then I went to DC and I chaired this nuclear threats community of interest. And then I was the deputy to the research support office for DITRA. Like I had this career trajectory that used my brain. And then I had this car accident. And now all of a sudden, I can't even make Monopoly change with my son. And I played it off, y'all, right? Like I played it off like a pro. Well, you need to get better at math so you can be the banker. But sometimes I'd be sitting there holding the money and I'd like, I don't know what to do. And I would say, here, you need practice on math. How much do I owe the bank? And it was the most embarrassing and humbling thing. Like I thought being 800 and something thousand dollars of debt and having to call up all the bankers and say, yes, I know I make $100,000 a year, but I can't pay these bills. I can't pay for this car note. I can't pay for this and I can't pay for that. Like I thought that was the worst thing in my life. No, the worst thing in my life was being a scientist for 20 something years and then sitting there unable to make Monopoly change with my son and feeling like the world around me was passing me by. I sometimes couldn't even drive home without calling a friend and saying, I need you to drive me home. And I know I was a burden on my friends during that time because they weren't used to me being anything but independent, you know? And here I am needing help to drive 10 more minutes home, you know? And it was very humbling. And I really, I saw, I mean, if you've never been in the military, then this might come as a surprise to you, but in the military, when you're not useful anymore, oh, they don't treat you well at all. And I became the butt of many jokes in the office. I became the office scapegoat. And people would they would purposely do things to get me all mixed up and wonked out in my mind. And then I would say wrong things, and they would just sit there and laugh at me. And then I would realize, oh, I've been pranked again. But it was just so sad to have been at the this should have been this should have been my pinnacle of my career. And I just felt so worthless. And so I had two mentors at the time, Paul Martinelli and Roddy Galbraith, and they, along with a plastic surgeon, Dr. Harold Bafidis, they taught the lessons that eventually became Self-Image Rising. It was a self-image mastery class. And I worked with them to take the lessons they taught, the small group of us, to take those lessons and really make it my own and launch it as the Self-Image Rising class. And so this is a very powerful class to help you get from where you are to where you want to go. And I guess he must have fallen off because I don't see any response as to what you want help with. But you can go out to, one thing I can do is I can show you where to go. Do I already have a banner made? I don't think yep, there we go. You can go out to jjclink.com/SIR to get the course that goes with this book. And then you can get the book. There's an electronic version of it in the course. You can go on Amazon and get the book. The book has these exercises, y'all. I'm telling you, it'll change the way you think about your life. It'll change the way you feel about yourself. It'll help you to realize that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And that even though you might have a few dents and bends and some scars of life, that doesn't change your value. It may change what you can do in any given moment, but that doesn't change your value. You're still a person of value. You still have value. There's still more for you to give. You know how I know there's still more for you to give and more of a blessing for you to be in this world? It's because you're still breathing. You're still breathing. That means there's still somebody for you to pour into. There's still something for you to accomplish. There's still something for you to realize deep in yourself that will take your life to the next level and be an inspiration to the next generation. And if those are feelings that you're struggling with today, I encourage you to get that book on Amazon or go get the class at jjclink.com/self-image rising. All right, sir. And if you come back and give me more details about what you were asking, I will definitely answer it as long as I'm still on. But if not, thank you for the opportunity to plug my course. didn't come out right. It didn't come out right. It didn't come out right. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. But look, let's be real. I signed up for a coaching, and I think they were surprised that I coached this particular program because I remember telling them at one point, well, you guys really don't coach people who are high earning, and I need to be around people who are higher earning and not be in group coaching where they're like, well, you should just do this life work because you love the Lord and you love God's people and you want to bless people. And I'm like, look, I love God's people, but if I'm not getting paid, I could be playing with my son or watching TV with my husband. You know what I mean? Like I could be on vacation if I'm not getting paid. I already got my money. I mean, I'm not where I want to be. I'm not at the change communities level yet. I'm on that trajectory. We're getting there, y'all. We are getting there. But I don't need to waste my time, right? And so I really do appreciate when y'all buy my classes. Okay. Okay. This is one of my favorite questions ever. All right, I am on a 0 for 2 with answering questions succinctly. Like the last two questions could each be their own podcast episode. So, and this one's not going to be any fast, okay? This one's not going to be any faster because this is a teaching one. So, I'm going to let you know right now, if this is not a topic that's interesting to you, this is probably all the computer battery I have. Let me see what is the last one. What can I get? What can I get? Okay. I'm going to take this quick question and then I'm going to go into the real estate question because the real estate question is going to be a while. I even got my paper out because I was going to draw this out for you all. Okay. This one here, this is somebody who's trying to get the college thing. And I thought it was funny. I was waiting to see if they were going to actually do what they said they were going to do, right? College, was it college loans.gov? Let me see. I was waiting to see. Oh, I probably have it wrong. It's there it is, studentaid.gov. I was waiting to see. They said they were going to have that application website done by they were going to have it done by the end of September, and I just got an email today that said in preparation for when we release this later this month. But what they you all can't see the screen. Oops. Here we go. What this person was calling me for was the public service loan forgiveness. And so basically it's, if you hadn't heard of this, then you got to get moving. Okay. I know my battery's running low. We might have to do the real estate question later. Okay. If you have not heard of this, you need to get on this website. And if you have a loan that this might apply to, you want to get in here and you want to take a look at this. Okay. Because this is a limited, I think you have to have the applications by 31 October. Yeah, 31 October. Okay. And so you want to apply now, but what you've got to do is you've got to get your boss to sign off on the fact that you worked there. Okay. And if you're in the military, well, I don't think military qualifies here. I don't know. I haven't read through it enough. But this individual who wrote this question did qualify. And so I actually had an opportunity to speak with this individual on the phone, and they were frustrated because their leadership was not signing the employment verification to let them know that they can apply. I mean, not so that they could submit the package, basically. And I was like, well, you're going to have to take the initiative. You're going to have to take the initiative and make things easy. And so I decided to include that here because I thought it was a really good teaching point for us. Sometimes we might shoot an email or do a phone call, or we might do what's appropriate. It's not that what we're doing is wrong, but what we haven't done is make it easy for someone to help us and give us what we want. Okay. In this case, he had a lot of other things that he wanted to talk about. I was like, let's take care of this first because this is what has to be done by the end of the month. And so get this thing taken care of. And we actually brainstormed. Okay, this isn't working. This isn't working. They're not responding. They may be ignoring you. They may not be ignoring you. There may be a gatekeeper. And so you want to find out, well, how do things get signed in that office? Now, personally, I don't understand why you can't just go to HR and get it done, right? Um, I didn't say it to him like that, but I said, that I would start with HR because they should be able to print out an employment verification for you. But some people are just wonky, and some people don't want you to succeed, and some people want to do everything they can to put obstacle after obstacle after obstacle after obstacle in your way to keep you from getting where you need to go. And I don't understand why people are like that. I just understand that they are. Right? Like, I don't understand why you would get in the way of somebody getting their loan forgiveness. Maybe you didn't get your loan forgiveness. Maybe you worked hard to pay off your loan and you're mad at somebody else's. I get in that boat sometimes. I'll admit it. But I'm not going to stop you from getting yours. It's your fault you got into it, but it's not your fault the government's going to pay for it. I mean, come on, if the government's going to pay for it, if my taxes are going to go to helping somebody pay their college debt, I'd rather it be somebody that's actually doing a good job. Maybe he wasn't. I don't know. But when people are giving you obstacle after obstacle, you have to find a way around it. And you cannot sit back on your laurels and be like, well, I guess it's just not for me. No, there's always a way. There is always a way. There's always a way to get what the Lord has laid upon your heart, or else he wouldn't have laid it upon your heart. Now, there's times when we want something that's not for us. And in those instances, then sometimes we might find ourselves chasing after something that isn't for us, but that's usually revealed. That's usually revealed fairly quickly. And so I'm more of the opinion of go for it. And if it's not for you, then there's a lesson along the way, because when there's something that's not for me, when there's something that's not within my reach or my capability, right? A lot of times it doesn't even come into my awareness. It's all out here in the ether. And then when it comes to my awareness, then all of a sudden it moves into my awareness, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, wait a second, I could do that. Okay. So you want to make things easy for people to help you. And sometimes you have to do some aggressiveness and some stalking. I had a property manager one time who was in collusion with the renters. The renters had given his sister a job. And so when they stopped paying rent, he didn't want to evict them. One of the reasons I hired this guy is because he was a bulldog about filing for eviction on day 5. Maryland, you got to give him 5 days. And on day 5, he had to post those pay or quit notices, and he was going down to the courthouse and taking care of business. And that's one of the things I liked about him. But because of the entanglement, he wasn't doing that in this case. Phone call after phone call. And then I go to the desert, and it's just like, well, now what am I going to do? I can't get this guy to do anything. So when I got back to the United States during my R&R, let me tell you what I did. All right, let's see if that's working. Can you hear me? Uh-oh. Am I not in this? Am I not in it? Hello, hello. Oh, there we go. Okay, so there we go. All right, so, okay, y'all, for those of you who wonder why I didn't go get my cord, sometimes when I go get my cord and I plug it in while the camera's already going, it shuts everything down. So I didn't want to risk that, okay? But we're just gonna use my phone until my phone dies. But I want to finish this. I want to finish this story. So I had this property manager, and he was messing around with me, not getting them, not, didn't do this, didn't do this, didn't do this. And so then I threatened to take legal action. So then he goes and takes them down to the courthouse, files, and gets a judgment. Okay. But this is when I learned, this was a while ago. This is when I learned that just because you have a judgment does not mean you're getting the money. Because sometimes you can have a judgment and you don't get paid because they're not going to pay, and you got to force them to pay. And if they don't pay, you go through the process of garnishing their wages and take the money out of their account, right? Okay. So
So I didn't know all that back then. I thought you go to court, you get the judgment, and boom, you're good. You get the money. No, that's not how it works. So we can talk about that some other time. But I couldn't get a hold of this guy. I needed the money. I was in 800 something $1,000 of debt, right? This was a house that I had won in the divorce, and the mortgage on it was like $3,000 a month, and it was the house we had lived in, and we couldn't sell it. I mean, this wasn't one of those cases where, military people foolishly think that I'm going to buy a house here, pay it down, move to the next base, buy a house there, pay it down, and rent them all out, and then when I retire, they're all going to be paid off. Okay, we literally could not. And I was a realtor at the time that I tried to sell this house. Okay, so we had the house on either side of us was for sale. This one because they were getting older. This one because they were getting a divorce. And then we put our house up for sale. And even though I priced it aggressively, nobody wanted to buy any of the houses because to them it looked like something had to be wrong with that part of the street that all three houses were for sale at the same time. Okay, and so I mean, and then not the pandemic, but the market crashed, and it was just a hot mess. Okay, and so I'm stuck with this house. I need to get somebody in there that's paying the rent. And even with the rent, they weren't paying what I was paying a mortgage because because everything crashed, the market crashed, and now nobody was paying. We paid 405 for that house. It was now only worth 180. So you can imagine the craziness of the rent. And so I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then I said, you know what? I've got this time of R&R time. I am going to go. And this is one of those blessings. I was working for an Army boss at the time, so I wasn't working for an Air Force boss because an Air Force boss wouldn't have let me do this. But an Army boss, he's like, yeah, I don't care where you go, just go. An Air Force boss is like, you got to stay in the local area. I was working for an Army boss. I literally drove to where this property manager lived. I drove there. I did my research. I found out where he got his mail. That's where I started, was where the mail went. I stayed for a while. They have different services they offer in there. I came back and forth. I got to know the people who were there. And when I found one who seemed to have an affinity for me and a dislike for that guy, I found out some general things, and that led me from this to this to this to this to this to this. I found out where he lived, and I camped out in front of the guy's house for a day. Literally sat there for about 16 hours in front of his post office box, in front of his driveway. And I saw, and nobody would answer the door. I wonder why. No one would answer the door, but I would see lights on and off, and I would see movement. And I tell you what, by the time I got back to my post where I was, I got a notice from my mailbox back home that the key had been mailed, or that I had a package from that guy. And what was in that package was the key to my house. I had them forwarded to me at my deployed. Well, I was back in the States by then, but they had them forwarded to me to that location, to that base. And yeah, you got to find a way to get after what you want. You got to make it easier for people to help you. And so in the case of this person who nobody's signing off on his stuff, I don't know why HR couldn't just print it out. In the military, they can. Civil service, military, there's a website you can go on and you can log in and you can print it out. You don't even need anybody's permission. It has an electronic signature there. It just does it for you. But if you're not in that kind of situation, you can get the folder, print it out, put the little stickies that say sign. Do I have some here? You can put the little stickies that say sign here. Nope, I don't have any. I did. My kids probably got into it. But you put the little stickies that sign here, and you carry it. And you carry like 3 or 4 copies, because the secretary the first time, or administrative executive assistant, whatever the proper name is now, they're going to block you the first time, or 2 or 3 or 4. So you have to be persistent. Ooh, I just lost people off of that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be offensive, but when I first came into the military, they were secretaries. And by the time I left, they were executive admins. I ain't trying to be offensive, but, I'm just trying to grow. But, sometimes you've got a gatekeeper. You got to get past the gatekeeper. And then even if you can't get past the gatekeeper, where else can you find this person? I have literally gone to the golf course. I have literally gone to a nonprofit like Rotary Club or some other kind of meeting to track down somebody that I needed a signature from. And so the real question I'm going to ask you is, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want it? How bad do you want to advocate for your life? Because if you don't want to advocate for your life, then I'm not going to advocate for your life for you. And some of us today, we don't understand why people don't want to help us. It's because they don't see us helping ourselves. Well, this is not going the way I thought it was going to go. I thought this was going to be a little 5-minute dealy. But I think this is an important point to stick on. There are a lot of people in my life who have helped me that didn't like me at first. It probably doesn't come as any surprise to a lot of people. There are a lot of people that just don't like me when they meet me. And I've learned to accept that, and I've learned to be like, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to do what I can to deliver value, add value, give value, and uplift in value. But one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to sit around and let woe is me and life stinks and nothing's ever going to get better. And so a lot of times after people see that or they hear my story, then all of a sudden they give me a chance. Well, you can't help everybody that writes you off right away, but there's always a way. And if somebody writes you off the first time you walk into their office, find out who else you can talk to. When I get somebody on the phone, y'all, when I get somebody on the phone that does not want to help me out, you know what I do? Thank you for your time. Hang up, call right back. And sometimes I might have to do it 3 or 4 times. And it's annoying being on hold for 20 minutes and then telling your story to 3 people up the chain till you finally get to somebody with the authority to make your decision that you need made. But if you advocate for yourself, then what you are doing is you are sending out the energy that I'm worth fighting for. And some of you, you've got people that would fight for you, but you haven't shown them that you're worth fighting for. They need to see you fighting for your dream. They need to see you fighting for your future. They need to see you fighting for your future generations. And it all begins with doing what you can do instead of worrying about what you can't do. But again, that young man was a lot like this script, like this drawing. He was looking at all these other things. I'm like, start with what you can do. Okay? All right. So now we're going to talk about real estate. And I'm going to try to be quick, but I am not making any promises because I already know that this is a long one. This is a very important one though. So this question came to me, how can I sell my house for the best price? And my take on it, as somebody who was a realtor for 10 years, I was with Long and Foster in Maryland, and then I was with Keller Williams in Virginia. Someone who's been a realtor, and I've been also a real estate investment. Okay, I've been doing real estate investment since 1999. I don't know everything about it. In fact, I guess I really shouldn't say that anymore because I probably didn't start doing my own investments till 2011, maybe 2010. Because it was really just following my ex-husband as part of how I ended up in all that debt. But somebody who's been around the real estate investment space for a while, and someone who actually helped people buy and sell houses for a while, I can tell you that there's a lot of different things that go into how much your house is worth and whether or not you can get max dollar for it. I'm also going to tell you that a lot of realtors and a lot of real estate investors are going to promise you the moon. And then once they get into your situation, they're going to nickel and dime that away. So let me give you an overview today of how it is that you can sell your house for the maximum price. But the maximum price doesn't always mean the highest sticker price for what houses are selling in your street. Sometimes the maximum price is what's the most I can get for this house in its raggedy condition that it's in right now that lets me be free of this house so that I can move on with emotional and financial clarity and freedom. And I don't mean financial freedom like I'm living on a yacht or anything, but I mean financial freedom like I don't have to stress about this thing anymore. I don't have to worry about these payments. I don't have to worry about somebody falling through the roof. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff anymore. Emotionally free. I'm not tied to this house. I'm not stressed out about how many payments I have to make. I'm not stressed out about how many repairs I can't make. Okay, that's what sometimes it's worth it to take less on a house so that you can have more peace. Okay, so let's say you have a house. I'm going to draw this house in the middle here. A little bit tired, so it's probably not my best house drawing. If you are listening to this as part of the podcast, I encourage you to go look at this on my YouTube channel so you can see the drawing that I'm making. All right. In fact, that goes for all the things we've talked about tonight. If somebody if someone is listening to me on the podcast, I encourage you to go look at the YouTube channel, because I draw things out that it'll be easier for you to understand if you have a visual. Normally, I try to avoid doing that too much, but this topic really uses a visual, okay? All right, so you've got your house, and let's just say, I don't know, let's just say it's worth 120K. Okay, we're going to say that the house is worth 120K. I don't know why I picked 120K. I just picked 120K. I'm probably going to regret that later when I try to do math in public. Okay, let's say if you actually, if the house would be worth 120K, okay, if it's at its tippity toppitest condition, okay, no matter what happens, depending, no matter what happens outside of the payments, you're going to lose funds to the realtor. Oh, this is too big. This is too big. All right, and then you're going to have closing. So I'm going to put close, and realtor got a little squished up in there. But for those of you who are listening, I drew a circle and I made kind of a pie chart, and some of that pie is taken up by the realtor, and some of that pie is taken up by closing costs. Okay, and whatever's left of that, you might have it decreased by loans, whatever loan you have against the property, or taxes. So when you buy or sell a property, depending on how close you are to the tax cycle, you may have to either pay tax for what you've already been in the house, or if you've already paid the tax for that cycle, then you may be reimbursed by the buyer for the tax you already paid for when they're going to be in the house. But bottom line, if the house sells for 120, you're not getting 120, because some of that's going to come from the realtor, some of that's going to go to the realtor, and they're worth every penny, right? And a good realtor really is worth. Now, a poor realtor, no, there's a lot of poor realtors in hot markets, but a good realtor is working hard behind the scenes to make sure that house gets sold as expeditiously as possible, making connections to make sure the loans don't fall through. Like, there's a lot of behind the scenes work that I used to do to earn that 7% commission, right? And most commissions are 6%, but our team taught us how to be 7%. All right, because we put that extra value and got those homes closed quickly. All right, but in certain markets, it's closing costs. Now, our real estate market is starting to soften, and some financial gurus are saying they don't think that there's going to be the crash that everybody is predicting. Y'all can be mad at the government if you want. I don't like some of the policies that the government has put out either. But one thing that they have done is they have put some of these economic policies in place that may seem like coddling, maybe, to people who made poor decisions. But the bottom line is some of these financial decisions that have been made are keeping the economy from collapsing. And so while I know that I have been advising for the last year or so, and not really advising is the wrong word, because unless you're my client, I can't advise you. But I have been recommending that people who knew they were going to sell their house in the next couple of years, you probably wanted to sell it and take advantage of the hot market. Well, the market is starting to soften. Sellers are starting to have to start paying closing costs again. And even though we still have a lot of buyers for the amount of inventory that's out there, it's starting to soften. And so I still think it might crash. I'm still kind of hoping it might crash. That sounds bad, but there's a lot of people who speculated there's no good way to say that. I'm just going to stop that thought. We can talk about that some other time. Anyway, you got a house, you sell it, you're already coming off of some of your money, okay? You're already coming off of some of your money, because some of it's got to go to the business of real estate. But the other thing is, even if your house was worth 120, okay, your house isn't necessarily going to sell for 120, okay? Because it might not actually be worth 120, okay? So let me just do this math real quick, okay? 120. Let's go with a 6% realtor, because that's three to each side is the usual. So that's 7,200. Oh, excuse me. Let's just say 5% closing costs. It's probably a little. It depends on the market, really. This is closing. We're gonna call that 6,000. Okay, and so right away, right away, you have from your 120 house, you got 106, 800 to work with. And that is if your $120,000 house is actually worth 120,000. Well, when might the house not be worth 120,000? Well, I'm going to tell you. Okay? There's a scale with houses. Okay? There's a scale with houses. And I'm just going to do a notional example. All right? That's probably a little more than that. All right. Okay, so a huge chunk of the value of your house is going to be location. You know, that's why they say location, location, location. Do you have good schools? Is it desirable? Okay, that's a huge part of the value of your house. So if this house is 120K, it's likely on a street of houses that are also about 120K-ish. Some may be a little bigger, some might be a little smaller. I always recommended people buy the smallest house in the nicest neighborhood they could afford, right? Because now they're getting the benefit of everybody else's house being better, and not buy the biggest house, nicest house in a smaller neighborhood. Although I did make that mistake with my first house, but we loved that house, so it wasn't really a mistake, right? The bulk of the value of your house is going to be the location. Does it have good schools? Is it a desirable location? Is it trendy? Is it happening? Is it on the way up, or is it on the way down? Keeping my mouth shut, keeping my mouth shut, keeping my mouth shut, keeping my mouth shut. Okay. Another huge part, but not as much as location, of the value of your house is going to be, the repairs and updating. Okay? So if your house was built in the 70s and it's not lead safe and it's got wood panel everywhere, well, there's a lot more updating. So this is a little bit of a squishy. This isn't necessarily a hard and fast rule. That's why I didn't put percentages on that, okay? But generally speaking, not as much as location, but to a significant extent is going to be the repairs and the updating that's needed to be done to get the house to this value. Okay? The other thing that goes into how much somebody is willing to pay, where's my green one? Uh-oh. Let's see. One of my chillins must have gone off with my green Sharpie. Let's see if I have another one down here. Okay, well, I have a metallic one. All right. Y'all like that mug? I used to love that career. You know what's so funny is I was at my first American Legion meeting, and they were asking me what I do, and I started talking about this intel stuff. They're like, "Oh, you can't tell us." I was like, "Look, I did intel my entire military career until the end." And the only two jobs I could actually talk about were both the ones where the agency I was working for had intelligence in the name. That's the crazy thing. All right. Yeah. Scientists in the military have the best jobs. Okay. I mean, if you got to go to work, you might as well enjoy it, right? I enjoyed seeing my work on TV, even though I couldn't tell you it was me. Okay. So the next thing is, and that's part of why I don't resent having my child so late. That's a whole nother discussion. Okay, then the next thing is what I call, there's no technical name for this. I call it cleanliness. Okay. Spelling in public and clarity. And what I mean by that is, can the buyer see themselves, ELVES, okay? Can they see themselves living there? Okay? So, Amber Alert. Okay, Lord bless that 2-year-old, let them find him. All right, so can the buyer Is the house clean enough that the buyer has cleanly? Is the house clean enough and clear enough that the buyer can see themselves in there? So it may be clean. You may not have any mold anywhere, but if you're like me, you have piles of stuff, and people have to kind of wait around the piles of stuff. But it's all organized piles of stuff. But if people walk into my house today, they're not going to pay top dollar for it because I got piles of stuff. Okay, and so you want to make sure the buyer can really see themselves living there. Now, some of us have some ethnic considerations, and I remember getting my feelings really hurt when I was told take all your stuff out. And even one realtor I had in one base I was stationed back in, and this was back in, this was back in the 90s, where you could say stuff like this to people and not get canceled. And they were like, you need to take all your pictures and everything down because you don't want people to know that a black family lives here. And I was like, excuse me? And they were like, and every time we show your house, don't you come around, don't you be around, don't you be within the house within an hour each side of showing it so that nobody sees you. And y'all, I was pregnant. I was pregnant, and I remember this one couple, they had come like 3 or 4 times. They had been to that house so many times. They were coming to measure for curtains, and I knew I had at least an hour before they got there, but I was so hungry, and we had been eating out because we were trying to sell the house. I was pregnant with Philip, and we were trying to keep the house smelling fresh and looking fresh, so no dishes in the sink and nothing but clean apple pie, cinnamon candle smells. And the realtor had told us, don't let them see you. And I was just so tired of eating Brahms and Taco Cabana, and I just wanted a home cooked meal, y'all. I think I was like 4 months pregnant, 5 months pregnant. And I went home and cooked that meal, and those people came an hour early, and within 10 minutes of seeing me, they didn't even stay, because I pulled out. I walked out to my car, me in my pregnant uniform. I walked out to my car, and I pulled out of my car as they were getting out of their car to go in. And by the time I got back to my work, which was 10 minutes away, they had canceled the contract. And so thankfully in today's day and age, that's not as much of a problem as it used to be, but it wasn't that long ago that it was a problem, right? And so I understand that dynamic. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about here, but if you are trying to get top dollar for your house, then you need to be aware of things like that. There are still some markets where having ethnic stuff in your house can decrease the value of your appraisal by 50 to 100 to almost $200,000. You can look that up. Don't take my word for it. Do your own Google research, okay? But the bottom line, excluding the ethnicity issues, the bottom line, no matter what ethnicity you are, is that the buyers need to be able to see themselves living there. They need to be able to see their pictures on the fridge, not yours. They need to be able to see their magnets on the fridge, not yours. They need to be able to see your tchotchkes behind, in the thing. So like if I was selling this house, I would clear out a lot of these books. I already cleared out a lot of them to be on somebody's stage. I forget who it was. And they were like, take that out, take that out. I took down my favorite thing. Wait, can y'all see that? Hold on. I took down that one and moved it up to the top shelf. That's one of my favorite gifts from my squadron officer school when I taught at Air University. And they were like, you can't have that in your background. Everybody wants to know why you have a hammer in your background. Excuse me. I don't know if they meant it as a compliment or not, but they called me the hammer because, and then the caption says, sometimes you need a hammer to make a team. To build a team. And that was one of the strongest teams that I had ever been a flight commander for. Anyhow, so if this was my house that I was trying to sell, I would actually get rid of a lot of the clutter. I would get rid of a lot of the things that would make it harder for somebody to see themselves in there. So it's not just location, although location is the big part of it, okay? And so once you've determined what's the real monetary value that somebody will pay, even if your house will be worth $120K, maybe you've got roof issues, so that's another $5,000 off the price. So the top dollar your house would get in otherwise pristine condition would be $115, right? And you just keep taking it down from there. Your cabinets are outdated. Okay, another $3,000 to $5,000 for new cabinets, right? Depending on the size of your house, it could be $10,000. But those things fall into the price, And you have to understand that when you're working with the realtor. The realtor, to get the appointment, is going to get the appointment and the listing and whatever they can. And here's the crazy thing about it. Some people, like our team, if you wanted to overprice your house, our team wasn't going to take it. Okay. Our team wasn't ever going to take it, an overpriced listing, but I know a lot of realtors who would take an overpriced listing hoping that it would get sold, and basically they weren't going to work for you. Our team wasn't going to take an overpriced listing because we knew that there is a correlation in real estate, and you have to balance value versus speed. Okay? So to get the full value of your house, value versus speed, to get the full value of your house, okay, you get the full value is going to be maybe in a normal market about 3 to 6 months. And we're starting to see those numbers creep up with the market. That's why I say it's softening. We're starting to see that we're starting to see that I'm sorry, I just got a ton of texts. Okay. Apparently I'm missing out on a really good girls trip. Sorry. This is what happens when you record stuff live, right? So to get the full value of the house is usually about 3 to 6 months. In the last year or two, we've had a crazy hot market where things are selling the next day, the next week, and that's softening. So it's going back to being a couple months, maybe 1 month to 3 months, and I expect it to keep softening, and then we're going to start seeing if the government can help avoid that crash that everyone's been predicting. Okay, we get the full price. But if you're willing to sell your house faster, then you can get a discount. Okay, so faster equals discount. Oh man, y'all can't see how pretty this metallic is over the screen. It is so pretty. Okay, so if I needed to sell this 120K house, I don't have well, this house is worth more than that, but let's just say it was my house. Let's say it was my house. There's no mortgage on this house, so I don't have to worry about a big chunk of this being taken up by a mortgage. Let's just say I had the flexibility to just pay realtor fees. Well, then I could accept $90,000 for it and get it sold. If I was willing to come down to, excuse me, if I was willing to come down to, excuse me, if I was willing to come down to 90, that would be a, boy, I'm so sorry. Hang on a second. All right. Whew. All right. Let me say that I was willing to come down to 90. That is a 25% discount. Okay. So I'm going to write inside this house, 90K equals 25. Oh, I don't want to write it like that. 75% value, ARV. Okay. So in this house, in this house that I've drawn here, if I was willing to set 90K, that's 25% off. That's 75% of the after repaired value, which is what ARV stands for. And I'm saying, well, the house doesn't need any repairs, so that's really 75% of the value. So any investor would take this property off my hands. If I was willing to come down like that, they would take this property off my hands and have cash in my hand in a week. So in this situation, I'm going to draw this out in a red circle. I'm not going to try to write realtor and closing. I'm just going to do R and C. And then I'm going to do a loan pie here. Yeah, I probably could have done that a little better, but let's just do a crosshatch. That might make it a little easier to see. All right. Nothing like watching people do this. It's kind of like cooking shows where you're watching people clean. I'm watching people chop. Okay. Okay. So I drew this circle down here. I drew a circle down here. Remember this circle that we did? So if I got full profit, didn't know anything on the house, then, I have to pay the realtor. I got to pay closing costs, depending on the situation. Sometimes you don't have to. Sometimes the buyer pays closing costs. And I've got my circle down here where I've got realtor, closing costs, and loan and profit. Well, if you see where the profit is, that profit is my wiggle room to being able to sell fast. And in the example that I gave you, most investors, I'm just going to write I because these markers are so fat, they're not writing as well as I'd like, okay? Most investors are going to want to come in below my little wiggle room line. See, they need this much wiggle room, and I don't have this much wiggle room. Now, if I didn't have a loan, or if the loan I had was down here, stopped here, and I had all this wiggle room to play with, then the investor could come in and get theirs, and I could still have a little something to move with. But what traps a lot of us and gets us stuck in these behemoth houses is we don't have a lot of wiggle room to move around, okay? And so you've got to understand that what's the best price you can get for your home? It's not always about the price. It can be about the price. It can be about the speed with which you need that house out of your life. It can be about a whole lot of other things, okay? There are things that you can do to help your house, especially if your house is not in an area that's super desirable or a super good schools or, super great flexible location, or a location that's being converted to commercial, or something that makes people willing to pay top dollar. If you don't have something willing to making people willing to pay top dollar, then you got to focus on the aesthetics. You got to focus on the aesthetics and the repairs and getting done what you can get done. Or you got to accept that the people that will come in to buy a house that has those deficiencies are not going to pay you top dollar. All right. But sometimes it's worth it to get that house just right out of your life and move on to the next phase of your life. All right, let me check these the questions, and let me see if I've got any questions in here. Now, I will say, if somebody submitted a question to ask JJC, when my computer died, I lost the ability to go in there and check them, okay? So if you have a question, you got about 10 seconds, 20 seconds to type it up real quick, or just say, put a question mark so I'll know you're typing up a longer question, and I'll talk some more. I can talk. I can always find a way to talk, right? But I'm just going to scroll through the comments here real quick and just, oops, no, I didn't mean to get that one. Sorry. I'm just going to make sure to do that. Now, when I talked about the multiple streams of income, let me go ahead and do that. So this is giving you time to wipe your last questions. If you've got a question, drop it in. Otherwise, when I make this point, I'm going to go ahead and cut it off for the day. When I talked about making multiple streams of income, one of the easiest to implement, but one of the hardest to master. It's not, I'm learning as a professional speaker. There's a lot to professional speaking. It's not just getting up and talking, and but there's still a lot of money to be made telling your story and getting in front of audiences. And even if you don't want to be a professional speaker, making $100 here, $500 there, that could really change a lot of lives for some of you. And so I want to encourage you that even if you're not in it for money, professional speaking or public speaking, if you don't want to be professional with it, is an excellent way to really hone your ability to share your message for whatever business it is that you do want to do. Or maybe you don't have a business, maybe you don't have a side hustle, but maybe you have a nonprofit that you're passionate about, but you don't seem to be very you don't seem to be very accomplished in getting donations. Or maybe profit, or even at a corporate job or an academic job where you have a lot of really good ideas and you're often overlooked. One of the ways to help learn to better communicate your points in a way that's well received by the audience, whether that audience is your boss, your spouse, or your pastor, is to get practice in front of people. And so I have this wonderful resource for you. Let's see. That's pretty long. It's covering up my whole face there. But it's a get paid, not just booked speaking bonus. And we covered this in the get paid, not just booked class a couple months ago. And so this speaking bonus lists out 30 places that you can get speaking engagements, and then also gives you some best practices for how to maximize those opportunities. So whether you want to be a professional speaker or whether you just want to get better at getting your point across, I encourage you to go out there to jjclink.com/stage and go ahead and get that handout. There's a little form you fill out, and if you're not already on my list, you get an option to join my list. But if you don't join the list, it's okay. I just appreciate you for being on with me. Look, I just appreciate you for hanging in there when my power went out because I foolishly forgot to plug in my computer. All right. Now let me go back to the comments. If I don't have any more comments, okay. I would like to ask if your podcast is a potential stream, or if your podcast is a stream of income. The podcast is a stream of income. Let me talk about that real quick, because people think that podcasts are like the way to millions of dollars overnight. And I have not found that to be true. Although truth in advertising, full transparency, being genuine and authentic, I have not been as consistent with my podcast as I in the last 2 years since retiring from the military as I was with it when I was in the military. And so the ups and downs of life and the treacheries of living in rural Texas have kind of distracted me, and I've had to work really hard to get back into a groove. So we're still getting more consistent. But the thing that I have found that a podcast really, really does for me as a businesswoman is that it helps me build relationship with my subscribers, who I absolutely adore. I love the feedback that I get. I love when they love that I tickle my own self sometimes. And I don't mean it in the wrong way. I just realized how bad that sounded. Oh goodness, I need to go get some rest. I need to just shut it down. But I love being able to build a relationship, and I love the avenue to be able to bring people in. Bringing people in as guests that allows my audience to expand, allows me to learn more and grow as an entrepreneur. And we are at the point now where we have brands that are asking to pay us to be on the podcast. So that's so one avenue of revenue from a podcast is the relationship you build with your subscribers, who then buy your books and buy your courses and bring you into their events. Okay, so that's one avenue of indirect payment, and that's usually the first avenue that you get from having the podcast. Then you can have revenue. Some people charge guests. I don't charge guests. I was applying to be a guest on somebody's podcast, and they wanted to charge you to be on the podcast. They wanted to charge you for a copy of the recording. They wanted to charge you for the graphics. I was like, never mind. You clearly aren't marketing to people like me. So, but you could do that, and clearly they were doing it, and they had over 100 episodes, so it's not like they weren't successful. I'm not going to knock their business model. It just didn't work for me. I don't charge guests to be on, although I do charge guests to be on live. Like if I have to stop everything and go live, then I do charge guests to be live, unless they are already speaking as part of one of my events. That's one of my VIP perks. The other thing, so you get the indirect benefits of building the relationship and the sales that come through that relationship. Then you get the direct benefits if you want to charge people. You can charge people to be on, or charge people for the recordings, or charge people for things that are associated with the podcast. There are other things that you can sell that are yours. So you notice in my podcasts, up until now, I've pretty much been selling my own stuff. And as we move forward, I'm negotiating with different brands to position their stuff. But of course, I have to vet the things and things like that. But that's one of the blessings of going to FinCon, because when you go to FinCon, you get to meet all these brands that cater to financial influencer. But like you'll always notice, I'm advertising Self-Image Rising when it's time for Healing My Sisters, Authentic Abundance, Think and Grow Rich, which is around here somewhere, right? Like all of the, you all hear me, hey, we're starting a new class. That's the first avenue of advertising, is advertising your own stuff, right? And then you get to the point where you're advertising for brands and then making affiliates. So I do make a significant affiliate income, because whenever I mention a book or mention something, I have an affiliate link to Amazon or sometimes the vendor's website, and I get a cut. And it's not much, but it adds up. And see, that's the thing. A lot of times we despise small beginnings and we don't do the little things that we could do because we're waiting for that one big ticket that's over here that we don't know how to get to. But if we just do the little things that we can do, eventually we'll be able to do more. That was a great question. Thank you so much for asking. All right. Well, I think that's going to be it for today. I want to thank you all for being with me online. I want to thank those of you who are listening to this as part of the Building Wealth Together podcast. I just appreciate you. I just encourage you to go forth and do the things that you've been called to do. And as one of my former mentors used to say, I believe in you and I believe in your dream. I'm JJ Conway. That's all I've got for you today. Y'all take care and be blessed.